Hey there everybody, Nate Brown here, and welcome to section 4 of my tutorial on how to make a basic animation rig in Blender. In this section we're going to be adding inverse kinematics to the leg and getting that moving. So without further ado, the first thing we're going to talk about are non-deforming bones. Non-deforming bones are bones just like these, but that are not going to affect the mesh as a whole when we skin it to the mesh. So the mesh being our actual character here, where the skeleton and the bones are these little pieces here. Now when we turn off deform, we'll eventually be skinning this mesh to the skeleton, and deform means the not having deform on being a non-deformer bone means that when we do that, no vertices are going to be assigned to that bone to manipulate and move when you move the bone around. So the reason you would want to do this is there's some bones that you're just going to have custom properties on. Maybe some bones are just controllers, some bones are just IK handles, IK poles, things like that. Anything that's kind of a utility bone that's not actually a structural bone like that. Now there's actually two that we've already added in that we are going to change to be non-deforming bones. So let's look at those. Put yourself into edit mode here, and then select the clavicle bone, just like I've got selected here. And over on the right, we've got all these tabs here. Go to the one that's bone properties, all the way at the bottom. It looks like a little bone like that. And you're going to see all these options here. You'll see this one called deform here, and it's got a little checkbox that's checked off right now. So right now this is a deforming bone, and all we have to do to make it a non-deforming bone is uncheck that checkbox. And the reason that we don't need this to deform, on a more complex model, you may want the clavicle to deform the mesh, but in this case, this guy is real simple, and there's no, we don't want the chest to move at all when we move this around, because we've only got a few vertices on his chest, because it's just this rectangle here. All we want the clavicle to do is to be able to move this shoulder around so he can shrug, he can, we can rotate that up so he can kind of, we just have a little more mobility with the arm itself, but we don't actually want that to affect the mesh. We just want it to move this bone, which will have the arm attached to it. So the mesh will move via this bone, not anything directly via the clavicle bone though. So back in edit mode, we just want to uncheck deform here to make that a non-deforming bone. And now the same thing with the other bone that we've already created that's a non-deforming bone, which is our thumb global rotator here. This little piece here, it's called finger thumb rotator. This one is really just to give us that global rotation for the thumb so that we don't have to rely only on this local rotation of this back thumb piece once we start adding custom properties and things like that. So I'm also going to uncheck deform on that one. Now that we've done that, and we've talked about non-deforming bones a little bit, we're going to add a couple non-deforming bones. And the purpose of these ones that we're going to add right now are going to be for the purposes of adding inverse kinematics to our leg. Now, inverse kinematics, for those that don't know, inverse kinematics is essentially a way of moving the leg around. There's two types of kinematics that you'll run into. For the most part, you've got forward kinematics and inverse kinematics. Forward kinematics is what we already have on our leg right now. Forward kinematics mean you start at the top of the chain of bones, like our hip here, and you move that, and then you move this, and you move forward through your chain of bones, and you move them all manually like that. Inverse kinematics is the opposite. You start at the bottom, and you move this in whatever way you want, and that will then automatically move the rest of the bones up the chain back to the beginning. So with inverse kinematics, we're going to be able to just move the foot around, and the leg will bend in a way that will keep the structure of the leg, and it'll bend in a way that makes sense with the foot. So to add that, we need a couple things. We need a handle to hold and move the foot around with, and we also need what's called a pole. A pole is going to be a bone that the knee is going to face towards, and when we do our inverse kinematics on the arm, we'll also have a separate pole for the arm that will be what the elbow points at. The first thing we have to do though is we have to grab our knee, and we just need to move this forward just ever so slightly. We need to have a slight amount of a bend in the knee. Otherwise, when we add the inverse kinematics, it could just lock up and the leg won't bend or anything like that. And that's one way to fix that. You can do it after adding the inverse kinematics in Blender. There's usually not problems with that. But just to save ourselves some trouble down the road, we're going to move this knee forward. Just has to be the slightest amount, nothing too major, just enough that there is a slight amount of a bend right there in the center. Okay, so now we want to add our non-deforming bones that we're going to use as an IK handle and an IK pole for when we add the IK, the inverse kinematics that is, to the leg. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this the bottom nub on the, or I guess it would be the top nub, but it's the bottom nub of the shin here. I'm going to grab this in edit mode. I'm going to hit E to extrude it. And then I'm going to hit Y so it just goes straight back. And I'm just going to stick it out a little bit like that. It doesn't matter how far out it sticks as long as you are able to grab this bone right here. So that would be good right there like that. Let's do the same thing for the knee. Grab the knee, hit E and then Y, and just have this one stick out forwards. Something like that would be good. Now we want to detach these bones from the leg. We don't want them to be sticking to the leg like that. So for the knee, let's do, we want to unparent this, which you can do right through the armature options right here, through parent and then clear, which is also Alt-P. You can also do Alt-P as the shortcut for that. And we want to clear parent. So now when I move this out, nothing's attached to it. It's just going to stay there right on its own. And this one you do want to move out a little ways, just have it sticking out in front of the leg like that. And then the bottom one, we also want to unparent it. So you can do Alt-P, you can do your menu. One other way of doing that is over here in your bone properties, open up relations, and you can actually just clear out the parent field like that, and now it doesn't have a parent anymore. This one down here at the ankle, we actually want to leave this right where it is. The ball at the larger end of this bone should be in the exact same position as the ankle joint right there. So that one can stay right there. Next, we got to make these bones non-deforming. So right here, we're going to uncheck deform on the ankle one, and we're going to uncheck deform on this one. And lastly, let's rename these bones. So this ankle one, this one I'm going to call foot _ IK handle. And I'm just making IK lowercase just so it's a little easier to read there. And then for this one, I'm going to say leg _ IK pole, P-O-L-E. Okay, perfect. So what we want to do next is add the inverse kinematics. So to do that, we have to be in pose mode in order to add the inverse kinematics. So switch your mode to pose mode, select your shin bone, and then over here on the right, there's a new tab for us, which is this one here, bone constraint properties. Click on that, and we're going to add a bone constraint. Mine for inverse kinematics is in this third column here. It's right here, inverse kinematics. Click on that, and that'll add that in. And it's going to give us a few different options for target, pole, target, and then a couple other things down here. And we'll be using those in a second. But for a target, we want to choose the armature because that's where the bone that we want to be the target is. It's kind of contained within the armature. So click on that. When you choose armature, it's going to pop up with this new line down here, which is the specific bone that we want to target. And for the target, we are going to be doing that foot IK handle. Okay, and then the pole target, again, armature. And then the bone we want is going to be the leg IK pole. Now it's going to break it a little bit. It looks real weird right now. Don't worry about how it changes right there. One thing that's going to help fix this is our chain length is at 0. Chain length is kind of like the length of the amount of bones that are involved in this inverse kinematics. We want to change this to 2. So switch that to 2, and it's going to kind of pop it back into place, but you'll notice on mine, yours may be different, but on mine, the leg is turned around completely. The reason for that is because our pole angle needs to be adjusted. So depending on how your leg is turned around, mine is 180 degrees the opposite direction. So I'm going to change pole angle to 180, and that'll snap it into place. Try 90, -90, 180. One of those should work for you. If it's a weird number, like not a multiple of not 90 like that, then you might have some weirdness with the way that your knee is. It might not be directly up and down in a line with each other like that. You should really only have that one bend of having the knee sticking forward a little bit. That might be what's causing that. But in any case, adjust it to whatever angle will point it towards this pole out here. And now we can see the functionality. So we can grab our IK handle down here, switch to move, and we can move this around. You can see the knee bends to adjust for wherever I put that foot. And if we look at the front, we grab this pole and we can move this around, and the knee will always point right at that, right? So that looks pretty good. The next thing we want to do is I want the foot to actually follow the rotation of this IK handle. I want this foot to rotate, stay straight along the ground when I move this around, and then if I rotate this, like this, it's going to move the foot around. It's going to rotate the foot around as well. So what we're going to do for that is we are going to grab the foot here, and actually we got to go back into edit mode for this. So go to edit mode, grab your foot, then grab your IK handle, and we're going to parent this. So Control P, keep offset. Now if we go back into pose mode, you'll see now it is staying along with this, right? That's what we want. But there's one more issue, which is that if I move this down, his foot detaches, and that's no good. We don't want that. We want his foot to stay where it is, and just kind of follow this as far as like kind of pointing towards this. So then one more thing we got to do is we have to grab this guy here, and this time we're going to do this in pose mode. So grab his foot bone here, go into the constraints, which I'm already in, but you want to go to this tab, the constraint tab, add constraint, and transform. We want to copy location, and then the target is going to be armature, and then the bone is going to be this shin bone right here. So we can do leg and shin, leg shin, and you'll see the foot snaps up to the top. That's obviously not what we want to do. The way to fix that is on head/tail right here. This is kind of telling it at 0 it's going to snap to the head, I guess would be this top piece here, or maybe that's the tail, I'm not totally sure, but it snaps to this end, the wider end there, but we want it to snap to the other end. So if you just put a 1 here, it'll snap down to the other end of it. And everything else should be perfect on this. So now we should have the functionality we want. We can move it around. If we pull it down, it doesn't detach the foot. It just kind of stretches to, it tries to stretch to wherever that IK handle is. And if we rotate that, it will rotate the foot along with it. So that is exactly what we want. And that will do it for this video. I hope this was helpful. In the next video, we're going to talk about adding both IK and FK functionality to the arm, and I'll see you all then. Thanks, everyone.